I never expected Thanksgiving to become the day my brother quietly erased me. I arrived with pie balanced in my hands, jokes prepared, and a soft belief that family still meant fairness. The house smelled like cinnamon and roasted turkey, the kind of comfort that makes you trust people too easily. My parents greeted me with careful smiles, the kind that pause before reaching their eyes. I told myself I was imagining it. I always did. My brother stood near the table, rehearsing confidence in small movements. He straightened his shirt. He checked his phone. He smiled at nothing. I asked him if he needed help, and he shook his head without looking at me. That was the first warning I ignored. We had grown up sharing responsibility. We cleaned floors together. We counted receipts together. We promised to build something side by side. That promise felt permanent, like a rule of nature. I carried it into that dining room without question. Chairs filled. Plates clinked. Conversations layered over each other like polite noise. I noticed my mother folding her napkin twice, then unfolding it, then folding it again. I noticed my father clearing his throat and not speaking. I noticed my brother avoiding my eyes as if they might interrupt his plan. Excitement tightened into something unfamiliar. Pressure followed. Then instinct whispered that I was standing in the wrong version of my own story. I tried to smile. I tried to stay grateful. I tried to stay blind. Then my brother stood up, and the room leaned toward him, leaving me behind. I didn't know yet that applause would replace my name, that silence would replace my seat, and that one holiday would quietly divide my past from the person I was about to become forever that very night. I grew up inside our family business, not just around it. The counters were my homework desk. The storage room was my hiding place. My parents taught me patience before profit, respect before recognition, and responsibility before reward. They showed me how numbers tell stories, how customers remember kindness, and how leadership can be quiet. I watched them work when nobody clapped, and I learned that consistency mattered more than applause. My brother learned differently. He learned speed, charm, ambition, and shortcuts. He learned how to speak loudly, smile widely, and take risks that looked brave from a distance. He loved winning. I loved building. He loved attention. I loved stability. Somehow, we made those differences feel harmless for a long time. We shared tables, tools, promises, dreams, and careful laughter. We argued, forgave, and pretended nothing serious could ever divide us. I believed loyalty mattered, even when success looked uneven. He believed winning mattered, even when others quietly paid prices. I supported his ideas, expecting equal respect. He accepted my help, expecting silence when outcomes favored him. Our differences stayed hidden behind traditions and holidays. Thanksgiving usually reminded us we belonged before competing again tomorrow. That year felt heavier, quieter, almost rehearsed. I noticed glances, whispers, schedules, and selective invitations. I ignored them, trusting blood, history, and shared beginnings. I believed honesty would protect us from unnecessary heartbreak. I believed love could outvote ambition. I believed promises could not expire without permission. I believed wrong things, for honest reasons. And while I was holding on to faith, consequences were already waiting for me just outside the door. I did not see them, but I felt their presence in every pause, every careful smile, and every delayed answer. They were patient, organized, and quietly certain. And they were about to introduce themselves to me in ways I never expected. I was still believing, while truth prepared to correct me gently first. Dinner plans formed quietly while I remained confidently uninformed again. My brother organized slides, numbers, projections, and selective memories like trophies. My parents practiced nodding, agreeing, smiling, and avoiding questions together. I focused on recipes, errands, jokes, and calming expectations instead. Nobody asked my opinion, schedule, goals, or boundaries beforehand, not once. I assumed cooperation was already understood between all of us. The business represented years, mistakes, loyalty, debts, and shared risk. I believed ownership meant responsibility, humility, and equal accountability always. He believed ownership meant control, credit, and public celebration mainly. We never discussed succession, authority, or leadership honestly before then. I trusted time would guide those conversations gently later somehow. He trusted surprise would guarantee approval instantly instead there today. I felt distant tension but dismissed it as holiday stress. I told myself families stumble before holidays. I told myself silence did not mean secrecy. My heart prepared for gratitude, not humiliation, confusion, or loss. I imagined conversations about future teamwork, not speeches about personal victory. I watched my brother move confidently through the house, collecting papers, checking devices, adjusting his tone. I watched my parents rehearse agreement with careful expressions. I kept smiling, believing I was still included by default. I did not realize plans were already locked against me. I did not realize decisions had already chosen sides. I did not realize that preparation had replaced honesty completely. I carried hope like a fragile dish, careful not to drop it. I believed respect could not disappear without notice. I believed partnership could not end without conversation. I believed I would be warned before being replaced. I believed my presence still mattered. I believed many things because belief was easier than doubt. And in that moment, I was still brave enough to believe one more time, even as the room quietly prepared to prove me wrong again. Plates clinked, laughter faded, and attention slowly centered on him. He stood confidently, holding papers, smiling like victory was guaranteed. My parents watched him, eyes full of relief and fear. I waited for inclusion, expecting shared acknowledgement beside him. He began announcing future leadership, expansion, innovation, and personal commitment proudly. Each sentence sounded practiced, polished, and perfectly safe for applause. Then he thanked our parents, carefully excluding me from the story. He spoke about loyalty without ever saying my name once. He explained succession plans, investments, and ownership percentages with calm confidence. My name never appeared, spoken, written, or respectfully considered anywhere. I felt invisible, embarrassed, confused, and suddenly extremely small inside. Guests clapped, unaware they were applauding my quiet erasure completely. I looked at my parents, waiting for correction, defense, or honesty. They smiled politely, choosing peace over fairness in that moment. My brother continued confidently, feeding applause, approval, and expectation easily. I swallowed questions, pride, and rising anger silently alone there. My chest tightened while my face practiced cooperation automatically. I wondered how love could feel so publicly conditional. I wondered when loyalty became a performance instead of a promise. I wondered why truth felt so expensive in that room. The speech kept going, and I kept shrinking inside myself. People nodded, believing a version of our family that excluded me. I felt my childhood memories being edited without my permission. I felt years of work turning into invisible footnotes. My brother smiled wider, enjoying his moment like a trophy. My parents avoided my eyes, afraid of uncomfortable reality. I realized they had chosen comfort over courage again. I realized I had been left out intentionally, not accidentally. I stayed seated, breathing slowly, refusing to collapse publicly. I told myself dignity was the only thing I still owned. Applause finally faded, leaving a ringing silence behind. Something broke inside me, and I finally understood everything differently. I did not cry, argue, or interrupt his celebration. I simply watched, knowing this was beginning. After applause, conversations shifted, pretending nothing serious happened yet tonight. People congratulated him, ignoring my stiff smile beside them all. My brother thanked me, calling my support inspirational and unnecessary. I realized he was rewriting history, positioning himself, deleting me. His confidence felt borrowed from silence I refused to protect. I excused myself, needing air, clarity, and emotional distance quickly. Outside, cold air felt kinder than familiar voices inside tonight. I breathed deeply, allowing disappointment to settle without breaking me. I replayed every promise, lesson, and shared struggle painfully slowly. Each memory felt heavier now, carrying meanings I previously ignored. My parents had chosen convenience, not courage, over honest partnership. I wondered when loyalty became optional inside our family structure. I wondered how many compromises built this quiet betrayal already. The answers felt uncomfortable, but honesty rarely arrives comfortably anyway. I refused to cry, choosing awareness, patience, and future instead. Tears waited, but I asked them to return another day. I promised myself answers would come before forgiveness ever did. I promised myself I deserved truth without begging for respect. I returned inside, carrying calm, not acceptance, not surrender tonight. My posture changed, but my heartbeat still remembered the moment. Conversations resumed, pretending nothing fragile had cracked between us quietly. I listened carefully, hearing new meanings hiding inside ordinary sentences. My brother noticed my silence, mistaking it for approval again. He smiled at me, expecting loyalty he never earned tonight. I smiled back, offering nothing except controlled emotional distance tonight. He believed the story was finished, sealed, and permanently accepted. I knew the story had only reached its quiet midpoint. I observed him celebrating, unaware he stood on unstable ground. I felt strangely calm, like preparation had finally replaced fear. My thoughts organized themselves, forming patient questions and careful strategies. I stopped seeking validation from people benefiting from my silence. I felt dignity returning, one quiet decision at a time. The room looked familiar, but I no longer felt inside. I carried calm, not acceptance, not surrender, not empty forgiveness. My brother had no idea what I planned next tonight. And I was finally ready to let truth move first. I began observing numbers, emails, files, and forgotten conversations quietly. I remembered agreements that suddenly changed without my knowledge lately. I reviewed reports, discovering edits, omissions, and creative storytelling everywhere. He had redirected credit, resources, and decisions toward himself carefully. I found messages proving planning, secrecy, and deliberate exclusion clearly. I saved everything, organizing timelines, patterns, and undeniable connections slowly. I realized this was not impulsive, but patiently constructed betrayal. My parents were persuaded using selective truths, confidence, and fear. I compared dates, signatures, and recorded decisions against promises given. Every line pointed toward intentional manipulation, not misunderstanding, not accident. I felt anger, then clarity, then strong responsibility forming inside. Proof meant power, but power required discipline, patience, and restraint. I avoided confrontation, choosing preparation, not emotional explosion, this time. I documented everything, protecting myself, not attacking him yet anywhere. I worked late nights, replaying conversations I once trusted blindly. Small details returned, suddenly carrying new and heavier meanings. A sentence here, a pause there, a promise quietly broken. Patterns formed like shadows I could no longer ignore. I felt betrayed, but I refused to feel defeated. I felt prepared, and preparation gave me surprising calm. I reminded myself that truth prefers structure over shouting. I reminded myself that dignity survives when patience leads. I stored copies safely, labeling every file with careful respect. I cross-checked numbers against memories, memories against records. Nothing matched his public confidence anymore. Everything matched his private ambition instead. I realized my silence had once protected his momentum. Now my silence protected my future instead. I accepted that evidence does not comfort, it clarifies. I accepted that clarity demands courage from those who hold it. I no longer questioned my instincts or minimized my discomfort. I trusted the proof because it trusted consistency. I trusted myself because I had finally looked directly. I knew confrontation would come, but only after preparation finished. I knew timing mattered more than emotional satisfaction. I knew silence could be strategic, not submissive. I knew truth would soon demand consequences for someone close. And I was ready to let it speak. Soon, nothing would stay hidden. I discovered my parents never approved everything he claimed publicly. Their signatures were copied, not requested, on crucial documents quietly. I realized they were victims of trust, not villains, entirely. My brother exploited love, fear, and exhaustion skillfully there too. I felt torn, balancing anger toward him, empathy for them. Truth became complicated, heavy, and emotionally dangerous suddenly again today. I decided transparency must protect everyone, not just my pride. I planned a careful reveal, not revenge, not humiliation, publicly. My brother still believed control belonged entirely to him alone. I watched him, confident, careless, and already celebrating victory prematurely. He laughed easily, unaware his foundation was built on borrowed permission. I realized arrogance often grows fastest before collapse quietly arrives. I prepared my parents, sharing evidence, timelines, and context gently. They listened slowly, as if every sentence rearranged their memories. They cried, apologized, and finally understood my quiet distance lately. Their regret felt sincere, but it could not rewrite yesterday. We agreed truth must confront him, not protect illusions, anymore. We agreed love required honesty, even when honesty hurt deeply. I felt stronger, supported, and strangely peaceful inside myself then. I realized I was no longer carrying this alone anymore. I reminded myself this was not about punishment or revenge. It was about restoring balance, respect, and shared responsibility again. I wanted correction, not destruction, accountability, not humiliation publicly. I wanted my family to survive this storm with dignity. My parents promised they would stand beside truth this time. They promised they would not hide behind comfort again. I believed them, because their fear finally sounded honest. I believed them, because they were finally asking questions. I discovered my parents never approved everything he claimed publicly. Their signatures were copied, not requested, on crucial documents quietly. I realized they were victims of trust, not villains, entirely. My brother exploited love, fear, and exhaustion skillfully there too. I felt torn, balancing anger toward him, empathy for them. Truth became complicated, heavy, and emotionally dangerous suddenly again today. I decided transparency must protect everyone, not just my pride. I planned a careful reveal, not revenge, not humiliation, publicly. My brother still believed control belonged entirely to him alone. I watched him, confident, careless, and already celebrating victory prematurely. He laughed easily, unaware his foundation was built on borrowed permission. I realized arrogance often grows fastest before collapse quietly arrives. I prepared my parents, sharing evidence, timelines, and context gently. They listened slowly, as if every sentence rearranged their memories. They cried, apologized, and finally understood my quiet distance lately. Their regret felt sincere, but it could not rewrite yesterday. We agreed truth must confront him, not protect illusions, anymore. We agreed love required honesty, even when honesty hurt deeply. I felt stronger, supported, and strangely peaceful inside myself then. I realized I was no longer carrying this alone anymore. I reminded myself this was not about punishment or revenge. It was about restoring balance, respect, and shared responsibility again. I wanted correction, not destruction, accountability, not humiliation publicly. I wanted my family to survive this storm with dignity. My parents promised they would stand beside truth this time. They promised they would not hide behind comfort again. I believed them, because their fear finally sounded honest. I believed them, because they were finally asking questions. I took one deep breath and felt my spine straighten slowly. I knew my brother would not expect what was coming. I knew preparation had finally replaced my old hesitation. The real confrontation was now unavoidable, necessary, and approaching fast. Nothing could stop it. I set boundaries, redefining my role, access, and expectations clearly. I requested independent audits, neutral advisors, and transparent communication immediately. My brother laughed, assuming I was bluffing emotionally again there. I remained calm, refusing arguments, gossip, or public scenes anymore. I protected my reputation, relationships, and future intentionally first always. I prepared to leave, if honesty was not respected here. My parents supported me, choosing accountability over convenience finally together. I documented agreements, boundaries, and next steps professionally now onward. He sensed change, losing comfort, confidence, and easy control quickly. His jokes felt thinner, his smile shorter, his confidence suddenly louder. I felt relief, knowing I was no longer trapped silently. I felt light, even while standing inside heavy conversations. I focused on dignity, not victory, not revenge, not applause. I reminded myself that peace requires courage, not permission. I prepared to speak, but only when evidence could protect. I trusted timing, process, and quiet strength within myself again. He underestimated patience, discipline, and emotional intelligence completely still today. He believed power lived inside volume and public approval. I believed power lived inside consistency and quiet preparation. I stopped explaining myself to people who refused understanding. I stopped shrinking to protect fragile egos. I stopped asking for seats that were already empty. My boundaries were not walls, but clear invitations to respect. My silence was not weakness, but controlled momentum. My distance was not punishment, but protection. I felt steady, like someone finally standing on honest ground. I knew I could walk away if truth was denied. I knew I could stay if honesty was honored. The stage was set, and he still felt untouchable then. I watched him celebrate a victory that existed only in his imagination, while I quietly prepared to rewrite my future with patience, clarity, and strength he would not recognize until it was far too late for apologies and accountability finally returned to our story. Auditors asked questions, requesting records, explanations, and missing approvals immediately from every department involved there. My brother grew nervous, defensive, and suddenly less charming when meetings became uncomfortable for everyone. His stories contradicted his emails, reports, and recorded instructions in front of witnesses repeatedly then. My parents finally confronted him, demanding honesty, humility, and accountability without offering protection anymore there. He blamed misunderstandings, pressure, ambition, and everyone except himself again that exhausting evening publicly too. Evidence remained calm, consistent, and impossible to dismiss anymore despite emotional resistance everywhere then too. Partners questioned leadership, ethics, and future cooperation openly during uncomfortable scheduled review meetings together afterward. He lost authority, trust, and influence faster than he ever expected possible there again today. I watched quietly, feeling no joy, only confirmation settling inside my chest slowly tonight then. Justice felt heavy, not sweet, not celebratory, just necessary for everyone involved then there too. My parents apologized again, promising fairness, transparency, and respect forward with genuine commitment together now. I forgave them, choosing healing over endless resentment slowly inside my patient heart again tonight. He realized consequences arrived, not loudly, but permanently this time without any applause there either. I understood karma prefers patience, not dramatic speeches, or revenge when truth finally speaks clearly. Silence returned, but it finally felt honest again tonight here between everyone present too somehow. Nobody celebrated, yet nobody denied what accountability demanded from us now there either anymore again. I noticed my brother avoiding eyes that once believed his confident promises easily today too. My parents stood straighter, as if truth physically supported their long-tired shoulders again tonight. I felt sadness, but it no longer controlled my future or my boundaries anymore either. Responsibility moved quietly through the room, replacing denial with uncomfortable respectful awareness tonight for everyone. My brother finally understood he was not untouchable, only temporarily unchallenged before then there too. I felt no victory, only closure settling softly where anger once lived alone inside me. Accountability did not shout, but it changed every future decision quietly forever there then too. Silence returned, and I knew honesty had finally reclaimed our broken family story again tonight. We met privately, without audience, applause, or protection anywhere left. The room felt heavy with unsaid words, tension, and history waiting quietly. He admitted fear, ambition, jealousy, and poor decisions quietly then, lowering his eyes. I admitted pain, disappointment, and long-ignored warnings honestly too, feeling years of frustration finally surface. We agreed trust was broken, requiring time, honesty, and patience to rebuild slowly. I refused to compete, manipulate, or sacrifice dignity again ever, no matter the cost. He accepted reduced authority, supervision, and shared accountability reluctantly then, nodding in quiet acknowledgement. My parents supported this, choosing structure over emotional avoidance finally, standing beside fairness for the first time fully. I felt closure, not victory, and welcomed that quietly inside, letting a long tension leave my chest. He looked smaller, but more honest, more human, than before, stripped of public performance. I realized forgiveness does not erase consequences, only softens hearts that carry lessons from mistakes. We shook hands, not celebrating, just acknowledging reality between us honestly, without exaggeration. I promised myself never to abandon truth again for comfort, even in familiar spaces. He promised to change, knowing trust would take years maybe, but honesty could begin today. I walked away, lighter, stronger, and finally respected enough inside, no longer defined by his actions. The story ended, but lessons were just beginning again here, ready to guide every choice quietly ahead. Betrayal taught me boundaries matter more than shared history sometimes. Survival taught me patience creates strength quietly over time always. Proof taught me discipline protects dignity when emotions cannot anymore. Consequences taught me karma prefers preparation over loud confrontation always. I learned family can hurt deeply, then heal honestly too, if truth is honored. I learned love requires courage, not silent sacrifice forever again. I learned success means sleeping peacefully, not winning publicly ever. I learned respect begins when self-respect finally becomes non-negotiable inside. My brother learned lessons, but I learned purpose, identity, and strength inside myself. Our family learned honesty costs, but dishonesty costs more always in the long run. I share this story, not for pity, but for courage, to inspire careful action. Someone watching needs permission to protect themselves today too now. Someone watching deserves proof they are not invisible anymore again. Someone watching will choose courage, boundaries, and truth tonight too. I ask you now, what would you do if honesty finally chose you first? Would you protect your dignity, or stay silent in comfort one more time? The choice is yours, and it begins with awareness. It begins quietly, with patience, evidence, and courage you may not feel yet. It begins the moment you decide your truth matters above all else.